Optimism in Action is produced in collaboration with KAZU, your NPR station for the Monterey Bay area of California. You'll find this episode and archived episodes at kazu.org/sidebar.
We've been very surprised because of our population and who we are that a lot of times the police are our biggest supporters in almost every city. We're everyone's last resort. Nobody comes to us first. They come to us last because no one else can do it.
That's today's guest on Sidebar, Dr. Lena Miller, founder and CEO of Urban Alchemy.
Sidebar is brought to you by Monterey College of Law, San Luis Obispo College of Law, Kern County College of Law, and Empire College of Law, located in Santa Rosa.
Welcome to Sidebar, featuring conversations about optimism in action with lawyers and leaders inspiring change. And now your host, Mitch Winnick.
I am very excited and pleased to have with us today Dr. Lena Miller. Dr. Lena Miller is the founder and CEO of Urban Alchemy, and she's going to explain what that's all about. She's a leading innovator in applying trauma-informed principles to public challenges such as homelessness, addiction, mental health, and police response. Clearly, Dr. Miller and her organization are willing to take on difficult challenges in today's communities. And I can tell you from seeing the work they've done, as explained on their website, that they've been very successful in this, and I'm very excited to hear more about it. Dr. Miller, welcome to Sidebar Optimism in Action.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have the conversation.
Dr. Miller, tell me how you got involved in this. I suspect it wasn't something that just came up by happenstance.
No, I was running another organization for youth in Bayview Hunters Point, and we had the opportunity to apply for the Pit Stop, which is public toilets, particularly in San Francisco and Los Angeles, in areas that were really impacted by homelessness and addiction. So in the Tenderloin in San Francisco and Skid Row in Los Angeles, I saw it as an opportunity for jobs. We started working with the folks down at 111 Taylor Street, which is the main and the largest halfway house in San Francisco. And so we started working with people who had life sentences. And in that time, I was in the process of getting my doctorate in psychology with a focus on trauma. And I learned that the flip side is if you survive the trauma and don't crumble, you develop this superpower called emotional intelligence. And everywhere where these guys were, in these really scary, chaotic places, crime would drop and they would just change the entire environment. And because of that, we started getting asked by city officials and different people who'd walk by and say something is different here. And they'd ask us to take on these other really tough issues like cleaning up the Tenderloin, which you go out at 4 o'clock in the morning and clean up trash. And there are encampments there during that time, 2017, 2018. And you have to be able to do that respectfully and not get into any crazy stuff, 4 o'clock in the morning and you're trying to clean and what's trash, what's treasure. And then that went on to asking us to do space management and space activation in areas that had been fraught, like in front of City Hall in San Francisco and other places, particularly during the pandemic. So it just took on a life of its own because people noticed that in these really chaotic, almost impossible situations and places, we were able to change the energy and clean it up physically, spiritually, with so much calm, respect, dignity, and love. So it didn't create more problems, so they just kept asking us to do stuff. So that's how it kept expanding to what it is now.
One of the things that strikes me that seems uniquely different about what you just said and what you've implemented in these cities is that other cities that claim some, quote, success in dealing with the unhoused, really all they did was package them up and move them out of sight. They didn't really dig in and try to address the core reasons as you have. How did you build those partnerships with the communities you're serving?
I think because I come from those communities. I have family members who still live in those communities, and everybody who works for Urban Alchemy does. When you address it from the standpoint, this is my cousin, this is my uncle, this whoever it is, and understand what it's like to have someone in your family with mental illness, with addiction. And that's what these places are. They're just like everyone's family members, right? Who they weren't able to handle it at home anymore, and they were overwhelmed for whatever reason. And everyone kind of finds themselves in these spaces. When you approach it from the standpoint of how do you really heal, as opposed to just keep doing the same old thing. And like I said, I was in the process of getting my doctorate in psychology. I had worked for 25 years, focused on trauma. We just looked at everything from the viewpoint of, if this is my family member who I love and they're walking through the doors, how do we take care of them? What do we do? What is it going to look like? What is it going to smell like? How are staff going to engage? If it's my family, and I did have family members in the street in the Tenderloin. So did my co-founder and kids I had raised and people I grew up with. It's personal. We find ourselves in a position where we were in charge. We did have the power. And so what do? When in fact you do have the power to design and cultivate people's experiences. We approached everything from that viewpoint. And dealing with the stuff is really not hard. I mean, it's hard, but it's completely doable. And I think that's part of the problem. I don't know if a lot of other people really understand that, and they just don't have the skills and the background for it. But all this is solvable.
And I think one of the things you've just said is what, again, makes what you're doing unique. You are taking it from the viewpoint of the individual who needs help and is interested in engaging with you. Whereas I think other programs that I've seen not be successful are taking it from 180 degrees the other side. What can they do so that these communities don't impact the rest of the community in a negative way? And they're not thinking about it from the user, your client, your friends on the street. They're thinking about it from those who are walking by or driving by or have offices nearby and basically say, we don't want these people in our community. We don't want to see them each day. You seem to just have such a unique, different viewpoint, and clearly it's working.
Because we do take that viewpoint. So for example, during the pandemic, we had an opportunity, the first one, which we called the Oasis in San Francisco. The city gave us this was the parking lot, the most impacted, worst intersection in San Francisco in terms of drug dealing, selling, using, encampments, violence, chaos, everything, right on Turk and Hyde. And they said, well, can you take this and make it a bathroom for your employees because you coming in and out? So a law firm gave us $100,000 and we said, you know what, we're going to turn this into what we call an oasis. We put a dog park because so many unhoused people have pets. We put these beautiful Adirondack chairs, the fake grass in the dog park. We have a little area where we serve coffee, tea, water, nice bistro tables and chairs, music playing, and then a place for people to store their stuff so you don't have to hold it or worry about it. You can walk around. And interestingly enough, every city that we're in now says, I want one of those. And what it does is, so when people are sleeping in someone's doorway or they're in the main intersection and they're doing that, sometimes it's panhandling, sometimes it's like, what else? Where else am I going to go? What else am I going to do all day? I want to be out and see people just like for the same reason everyone else does. And so you have to take that perspective. So when you ask somebody, okay, you can't be in this business's doorstep, well, where am I supposed to go? You come to the Oasis, and the key to all this is create spaces and places where people want to be. What do people want to do? What's something that's going to work? All these people are just a collection of these individuals from everybody's families. When you see it from that perspective and you say, how can we deal with this humanely in a way that everybody gets what they want? It works.
So let me ask you about the other side of the equation, because clearly you couldn't achieve this without building bridges with the municipality, with the city departments, with the police department, with EMT, all of the agencies, the health department that's involved. That must be a large part of what your organization has to negotiate as well.
Well, that's who hires us.
But how do you convince them that you're the one?
We don't convince them of anything. They come to us. They see it. And we've been very surprised because of our population and who we are, that a lot of times the police are our biggest supporters in almost every city. We're everyone's last resort. Nobody comes to us first. They come to us last because no one else can do it. What they won't say out loud, and hopefully this peer-reviewed study hurries up and comes out, is that we're the ones responsible for that. The point is, the police, the EMTs, these are people who have to respond, whose jobs are dependent upon it. And I think they watch long enough and they're like, oh, these guys are the real deal. And they take the burden off me. So I think we earned our respect by really doing the work at a very, very high level.
And I see that you've expanded. You mentioned it, San Francisco and Los Angeles on your website. You list San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, Culver City, Portland, Birmingham, Santa Fe, and Denver. How did you make the transition into other cities? Because that's another real challenge. Something that might work well because you know San Francisco and you've got familiarity doesn't always translate to another municipality. How did you do that?
Well, it always translates, first of all, because it's pure. So you have somebody who really understands the principles, what we're doing. And so we have them as the director and maybe a deputy, and whole team, which is deep and wide, goes down there and helps set up. And then we start recruiting, and then we train and we bring some of the workers back to either San Francisco or Los Angeles, where we're really thick, and so that they can really pick up the culture and we stay really involved consistently. The hard part to navigate is that when administrations change, so usually there's a particular mayor who's getting a ton of heat to deal with the homelessness issue. And so they're desperate. They've tried everything. Nothing has worked. They don't have any providers where they are. And so they call us out of desperation. And we're effective. And then what happens is when a new mayor comes in, they'll want to make their own stamp. They'll look at us as belonging to the old mayor. That's the hard part. But in terms of the translation is pure. It's humans doing what's right. This is the science that, remember, I just graduated with a doctorate in psychology. I know what the studies say. I know what works. I know what trauma-informed care looks like. I know how important connection is to people and all these different things. And those are the things that we do. And we have people that are tremendously committed who've also been thrown out by society and now have a chance to be integrated back as protectors and providers. So that's a motivation that you can't pay for.
Support for Optimism in Action comes from the Monterey College of Law, a nonprofit law school serving the Monterey Bay region with evening classes on campus or in a hybrid online format. More details and applications available at montereylaw.edu. That's montereylaw.edu.
One of the things you said you started with was an idea to not only address the unhoused and the mental health, but to do transitions back into jobs. Talk a little about that. I suspect that's a different type of challenge.
That is the easiest part of it, particularly when we're talking about people who've done long-term prison sentences. You got people coming out of prison, they've been working for decades for 15 cents, or they have a high level of discipline. So you have people who are so motivated and they have an opportunity. Just in terms of hiring people coming home from prison, in San Francisco, we've created a whole ecosystem. Everyone wants a former lifer, and that's because they've seen our success. And they understand the emotional intelligence and the discipline and all those things. And they're trying to also build their workforce up with reliable, consistent people.
That certainly is an outcome measurement that the community's giving you credit for, and sounds like well-deserved. On your website, you also talk about some of the impact numbers, and it's really impressive. I want to get a chance for you to talk about that. You've measured positive engagements of well over 1 million positive engagements in San Francisco, and I suspect you're over 1 million in Los Angeles and Culver City as well. That really says a lot, and I like the fact that the way you characterize it is it's about positive engagements, and that sounds like that runs through your entire philosophy of what you're doing.
One of the things I've learned in being in academia is that everything is studies, because anyone can say anything, but it's really about peer-reviewed studies. And every single study says that the most important factor for humans, every quality of life indicator, what it boils down to is the quality of your connections. Everything is connection. That's one piece. A second piece is the reason why these communities are so safe, because you have eyes on the street. If something happens, people know who's who, they come out. And our people are outside every day. They say hello, they greet people, they talk to people. So you develop this relationship with people. It takes a while. You have to have the constant where I'm talking to you. And then over time, especially with people who are very skeptical. But every day you start to develop these relationships, and then pretty soon it begins to soften and you develop a connection and what we describe as an emotional bank account. So that when you really need somebody to do something, like I need you to stop using drugs right here, that you've invested enough time in relationship, or somebody screaming and yelling at somebody or doing something else, you can come over and calm them. And they know you and they have a relationship. So there's a whole psychology and a lot of sociology that provides the science behind our approach.
What type of help do you solicit from volunteers, other organizations that partner with you? Sounds to me like you've networked together quite a large village of people to help you accomplish these things.
Definitely we work with the city. They have a relationship with the police. There's certain businesses, things like that. But we don't take volunteers. This work is too hard. It's very dangerous. And we can't have volunteers out here. There's a way you have to do things. We're not that kind of place. This is professional work. You better know it. I believe it used to be that the prisons were the number one mental health facilities in this country. What I believe is that if you study it, the homeless shelters are now. This is a profession and you have to know what you're doing. Usually everyone we hire is from that particular city, with the exception of the program director usually, because they've had to be inside Urban Alchemy for X amount of years to really understand our culture and to bring a true version to another city.
So let's wrap up by talking a little about the future. You've had a lot of success in building this organization and developing your model and clearly implementing it effectively. What do you look as the future steps for Urban Alchemy?
I think we are looking at more how do we package ourselves, and I think what we've learned is that a lot of people see us as a homeless response service or jobs for people returning home from prison, and really what we do is respond to disasters and emergencies. And I think we also have to change. So we're not in cities for a decade or years and just get in, share the model, and then get out. And I also think it's about working with academia and the research communities to document this, because this whole field, the social service field, is the models are 40 or 50 years old. I'm just saying that because I'm talking about as long as I've been around to remember stuff. They haven't changed to reflect the realities of today. This is usually the number one issue in major cities, and it's super expensive. So what I'm trying to say to everybody who will listen is that it's come to a point where we must follow the science. What are best practices? How do we measure these things? I still push forward because you need to push forward, and slowly it'll catch on, because I'm trying to get people to see you must study this. You must identify best practices. We've started asking for performance-based contracts. This is too big, it's too serious, it's too expensive to deal with this the way that we've been dealing with it. We can't just look at it like what I call the charity model, like global warming. It's not enough to pick up a piece of garbage. We have to really find some ways to deal with this en masse. And so that's what I'm trying to push. And I think that's the future.
Well, I think that's another unique aspect of your approach, because you are tying both your individual connections with academia, but you're bringing those type of researchers and statisticians and data managers into the process, because with them, it sounds like your goal is to achieve systemic change, not just to address the window dressing of the results, but to actually at its root cause understand and address change. I really applaud you for that effort, and it's a heavy lift. How do you get yourself fired up every day to say, I'm going to go fight this battle one more day?
I would say it's ingrained in my DNA. I almost feel like I have no choice. It's not how I get myself fired up, but I know what needs to be done. I have a gift of insight, which is our logo, and I know it, I see it, I feel it. My grandmother once told me, a flower always reaches towards the sun. As long as you're alive, You know, they can cut down every tree around you and look like everything's coming for you next. But as long as that sun is still shining, you have to reach for the light. And we're ingrained, we're programmed that way. I have this gift to be able to see and know what we need to do. And it's not an option for me to sit around and boo-hoo. It's not easy to change the world for the better. You'll pay a pretty steep price, so you better do all the things to keep yourself sane and steady.
Well, Dr. Miller, thank you very much for spending time with us on Optimism in Action. I'm impressed with the successes you've had. I've heard many people talk about what they're doing in their respective cities, but yours appears to be an approach that's not only working, but it has the potential to really address the systematic changes we need to improve cities and improve the lives of the individuals you're serving. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for sharing time with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on and letting me spread the good news. It is entirely doable.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to Sidebar, Optimism in Action. For more episodes and information, go to SidebarMedia.org. That's SidebarMedia.org.
Sidebar would not be possible without our producer, David Eakin, who composes and plays all of the music you hear on Sidebar. Thank you also to Dina Dowsett, who creates and coordinates Sidebar's social media marketing.
Optimism in Action is produced in collaboration with KAZU, your NPR station for the Monterey Bay area of California. You'll find this episode and archived episodes at kazu.org/sidebar.